Screams cut through the Hollywood night. A woman 8 months pregnant begged for her life while shadowy figures moved through a hillside home. A frightened man tried to run across the yard. Another hid in a room and prayed. Outside the gate, the word pig would soon be scrawled to make the city afraid. At the center of it all was a small man with wild eyes and a soft voice who said he could start a race war and change America. His name was Charles Manson. He did not swing most of the weapons that night, but he sent his followers to do it. And when one girl in his group froze, shaking, he leaned close and whispered, "Do it for me." She raised her hand. And then the phone line in the house went dead. Weeks earlier, the city felt normal. The sun was bright. Young people danced to rock music, wore beads, and talked about peace. But there was another world under that sunshine. On the edge of Los Angeles sat an old movie ranch with broken sets and dusty roads. That is where Charles Manson lived with his family, a group of young men and women who called him Charlie and said he was the teacher. They were not related by blood, but they shared food, clothes, and secrets. They believed he was a kind of guide. He played the guitar, he spoke in riddles. He said the world was about to crack open, and only those who followed him would be safe. Charlie kept his voice gentle and slow. He told stories that felt like songs. "You are free," he said. "You can be new." Many of the girls had left homes where they felt unseen. Some of the boys felt angry or lost. At the ranch, Charlie hugged them and called them beautiful. Then he gave them chores, rules, and a new way to speak. He used simple phrases that sounded deep. He said the city was fake, money was a trap, and the real truth was in the desert, in the stars, and in him. He taught them to obey without asking why. Slowly, the rules got darker. Charlie said the world would soon fall into chaos. He pointed to songs on the radio and said they held secret messages just for him. He told his followers a war was coming, and they would be the spark. He spoke about helter-skelter, his name for the storm he thought would split the country. "When people panic," he said, "we step in and lead." The family nodded. They wrote his words in notebooks. They practiced sneaking through the ranch at night without a sound. Not all days were angry. Some were calm and sweet. They cooked stew in big pots. They shared blankets. They watched the sunset stain the sky orange. On those days, Charlie strummed his guitar and sang. He said they were his angels. He said they were pure. But even during the soft moments, fear sat behind his smile. If someone questioned him, he stared until the person looked down. If someone wanted to leave, he reminded them of their promises. He said the outside world would never understand them. "Only I do," he whispered. Charlie also wanted to be a famous musician. He chased a record deal. He met people in the music scene. When one producer turned him down, Charlie felt small and furious. He told the family that famous people were puppets of a bad system. He said their houses in the hills were full of empty souls. He began to talk more about making signs that the city would fear. He said a message had to be sent. Something newspapers would print in fat black letters, something that would shake the country awake. One night, Charlie took 4 followers on a drive through the hills. He pointed to a big house he knew from the music days. "There," he said, "do what you must. Leave a sign." The 4 nodded, faces pale in the moonlight. They had learned to move as one. They wore dark clothing and parked down the road. They slipped past the gate like shadows. The house was full of laughter and soft light just moments before fear walked in. The family tied people up, whispered orders, and turned a peaceful night into a terrible one. When the sun rose, the city seemed different. Sirens wailed, reporters rushed to the scene. Helicopters beat the air overhead. Police officers stepped over broken glass and stared at the walls with hard eyes. The names of the victims traveled from radios to living rooms across the country. A famous actress, friends, a young man who came at the wrong time. So many lives were taken, and so quickly. Los Angeles, a place of dreams, felt cold and unsafe. People locked their doors for the first time. They checked their windows twice. You might think a group would stop after something so awful, but the family did not. The very next night, Charlie said, "We have more to do." He wanted the city to shake again. He wanted anger to turn to panic, and panic to turn to war. He led some of them himself now, moving like a small general through the dark. They drove to another home. They cut the power. They brought knives and rope. The quiet of the street made the crickets sound too loud. Inside, a husband and wife sat in their living room, unaware that danger was already at the door. Charlie pressed a finger to his lips. "No mistakes," he whispered. The family split into pairs. A dog barked once and then went silent. A window slid open on smooth tracks. Footsteps crossed the carpet. The husband stood up, confused. The wife gasped. In a heartbeat, the house became a trap. This was the second night of terror. Another message in Charlie's twisted plan to push the world toward chaos. As the family lifted their hands to strike, the front porch light flicked on, flooding the room with white. The white porch light glared like a spotlight, and for the first time, the family froze. Charlie's eyes went wide, only for a moment, but that was enough to break the rhythm. One of his followers whispered, "Charlie, what do we do?" He hissed back, "Finish what we started." The air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Inside, the husband reached for the phone, but the line was dead, cut minutes earlier. Then came the sound of feet scraping across the porch. By the time the police arrived hours later, another home had become a scene of horror. The two killings, one after another, sent a chill through all of Los Angeles. News anchors called it evil in paradise. People stopped walking at night. Hollywood stars hired guards. Every noise in the dark sounded dangerous. Reporters camped outside police stations, hungry for answers. But detectives had little to go on. Just strange symbols, the same messy handwriting, and fear spreading faster than facts. Back at the ranch, the family acted as if nothing had happened. They sat around the fire, eating from one pot, faces blank and tired. Charlie smiled. "You see," he said softly. "The world is waking up. They're scared now. That's what we needed." Some followers nodded, but others couldn't sleep. They whispered to each other at night, wondering if they had gone too far. Still, no one dared to question him. Charlie's voice was calm but carried the weight of a threat. "If you doubt me," he once said, "you doubt the truth." Police were chasing shadows. The city was full of rumors. Some said it was a satanic cult. Others blamed jealous lovers or gangs. Detectives worked day and night, staring at photos, comparing boot prints, following tips that led nowhere. But a few small clues pointed them toward something strange. An old ranch on the edge of town, full of young people who didn't seem to have homes or jobs. Neighbors complained about noise, music, and the sound of motorcycles at all hours. It didn't look like a murder camp, but no one could explain what went on there. Meanwhile, the family's faith in Charlie was cracking. One girl, named Susan, started crying one night. "Charlie," she whispered, "I keep seeing their faces." He looked at her coldly. "You're weak," he said. "You need to let go of the old world. We're making something new." He played his guitar, slow and hypnotic, until her tears dried. But others had heard her. Doubt was spreading like a quiet fire among them. Charlie decided it was time to move again. He said the city was tainted and that they should head to the desert, where the family could wait for the war. They packed their few belongings and drove in a caravan through the empty California highways. Dust followed them for miles. At night, under the stars, Charlie told stories about a future where the family would rule after chaos. "The world will come to us," he said. "They'll beg for our peace." His followers listened, eyes glazed, voices soft with belief. But peace never came. The police finally traced a stolen car back to one of the family members. A small mistake opened a giant door. When they raided the ranch, they expected drugs or theft. But instead, they found weapons, stolen property, and strange writings that matched the words found at the murder scenes. The officers noticed how the members obeyed one man, how they called him Charlie, like a leader. The pieces were finally falling together. When the arrests began, the family didn't resist. Some smiled as if they were proud. Others cried. Charlie stood silent, hands cuffed, eyes darting between the officers. "You're just doing your job," he told one, "but so am I." In the police van, he hummed to himself, a tune no one recognized. He looked calm, like a man going to a meeting instead of prison. The trial became one of the biggest in American history. Crowds lined up outside the courthouse just to see the man who had turned peace-loving kids into killers. Cameras flashed every day. The family members still called him Father. They carved X's into their foreheads to match his, saying it showed they had removed their identity. Inside the courtroom, Charlie smiled often. He interrupted lawyers, laughed during testimony, and said the world was too blind to understand him. "You made me," he told the judge. "I'm only what your world taught me to be." When the guilty verdict came, Charlie didn't flinch. He leaned forward, smiling, and said, "You can lock up my body, but you can't lock up my mind." The judge sentenced him to death, later changed to life imprisonment. The family members screamed as they were led away, calling his name. Outside, the world finally breathed again, but something had changed forever. The summer of love had turned to fear. The line between peace and madness had been erased by a man with a guitar and a smile that never reached his eyes. To be continued.